Thanks for stopping by on another episode of What's in the Box. Today we'll be taking a look at Neca Toys' American Werewolf in London Nightmare Demons. I am, of course, a huge American Werewolf in London fan. I'm a werewolf or wolfman fan in general. So I've been looking forward to this figure release for some time and decided to pick up 4 so I could get all 4 variety of characters. Now, this comes from a scene in which David has been attacked by the werewolf, has been hospitalized, and at night he's having some pretty horrible dreams. In a particular dream, he imagines that these wolf men come to his home and attack his family, killing everyone, including him. They are very prominent in that short scene, which lasts maybe 2 minutes. And they're meant to be. They're all meant to be very specific in their look and potential shock value. Of the 4, there are 2 standouts that most people remember the most, which are these middle 2. I can't say enough about this film. It's part comedy, it's part horror, it's a little bit of everything, and most people point to it as one of the first horror comedies. Now, in my opinion, sure, that's fine. I don't know if that's true or not, but either way, I enjoy the movie. Neca talked about releasing, I believe, the wolf first. I can't quite remember. Sadly, I don't have that in hand just yet, but these did come in, and we're going to take a look at them and go through everything you need to know about this figure. First impressions right out of the box, they're quite cool, especially in a group. But here in a second, we'll go to a figure breakdown on at least one of these. Now, I have all 4 set up here. As you may know, each figure came with a slew of accessories, but also 4 separate heads. Now, of course, you're the standard collector. Sure, you want one figure and you can swap out the heads, no problem. I'm a big fan of the movie, so I went so far as to buy 4 of these figures and then put the heads on them, and that's how I'll display them. I ended up having, God, I don't know how many extra heads and extra accessories, but I had to do this being a fan. Now, of course, to set up a scene or a diorama, you would need some other random figures for them to attack, but I really like them in a group, and I like how I kind of have them posed. They're even posed that way in the thumbnail. But yeah, what we will do is set a couple of these aside and go through the whole thing step by step. Alright, so what we have left here is one of the characters that is really well known in the film. I think when people talk about American Werewolf in London and this particular scene, they're generally talking about this particular Wolfman. As I mentioned before, the bald version is another that people tend to think about. So, let's talk about the figure itself. Paint job wise, of course, these are all going to have a standard military uniform, so they're not going to change a lot between bodies. The heads do a lot to change them up, and they're done fairly well, actually really well. As I've looked this over, there is really no paint splotches, mistakes, anything of any kind on the body. The suit is standard military green. It has some little leather bits for the belt and this shoulder belt, I guess, loop. There's a darker green that lines the collar, lines these little shoulder loops. And that's about all the dark green you get on this, other than the sort of olive drab that they've used here. The boots are black with maybe a gray or brown wash to them. And the belts and gloves, black as well. The detail is really great on this. I can't say enough about it. As you can see in the close-up here, there's all sorts of little silver buttons, belt buckles. It's just, and it's amazing that none of the paint is off on this at all. Like, I can't nitpick it in the slightest. So what we need to do is move on to the head. Now I'll set this aside and we'll just go straight into a head in general. The head you saw on that body is this particular one. This has sort of, well, not sort of, but it has a helmet, and the weathering and sculpt on this is quite good. You're going to have a bunch of little dents and dings in the helmet, even a crack or two. There's a split on this one side. And what they did really well here was give it sort of a rusted rain look. You can see here that there's little streaks, dark streaks coming down the side of the helmet. And generally that's something you might see from rust, from pouring rain, and just damage in general. This does have some lighter, darker weathering on it, but it's kind of hard to tell whether it's the light playing tricks with me or not. Now once you get down to the face itself, I mean, come on. Only a face a mother would love, right? I have Rick Baker, who's the makeup effects artist on this. I have his art book for many of his movies, and this was one of his personal sculpts. I'm not sure about the others, but I know he sculpted this one in particular. And this is sort of a dead and decaying, almost zombie Wolfman. And it has, you know, it's lost its skin, its teeth are hanging out. It's a really wicked sculpt that's meant to make an impression on you immediately. As you get into this, he's just sort of dry looking, and he's kind of meant to be dry looking. He's sort of a shriveled up, dead carcass of a figure. So there's not a lot of gloss in this particular sculpt and paintwork, but you do get a little gleam off the eye, and the helmet has a bit of a shine. So it's a really great sculpt, and it does match the screen accurate mask quite well. Moving on to the second most known of these Wolfmen, or Nightmare Demons as they're called, is you know, old Baldy here. Again, another extreme look with sort of that, you know, that part of his face raised and squished together. He too is painted really well, to be honest with you. As you can see, he has sort of a flesh tone with plenty of darker tones and lighter tones, and as it is with most bald folks, as it gets up to the top of the head, it becomes lighter. The expression is done really well. There's been a lot of love put into these, just looking at the sculpt work alone. Another great head, some gloss work in the eyes and the mouth. Next up, we'll go to, don't even know what to call him. He kind of looks like a hillbilly wolfman to me, so that's what we're going with. He has a real odd look with the widow's peak and sort of mullet hair, long sideburns, and a bit of a weird mustachy beard thing. Of the four, I would say he's slightly weaker in paint, but not by much. You get a lot of nice gloss in the mouth and the teeth and the eyes. And he has these raised werewolf ears there. Hair's painted brown, nicely done overall. I think with this application it was a little less refined, but it's so little it doesn't even matter. And then we have our final head sculpt, which kind of seems like a standard wolfman. You have the typical snout coming out of the face, the long teeth and shaggy hair. To make him stand out in the film, they had given him sort of a graying effect to his sideburns and a streak down the middle of his head. He too has some really nice gloss work in the eyes. He has more of a satin paint job within his mouth and his teeth. But he has what seems like a pretty straightforward gray paint job on the face, with just a tiny bit of darker tones in the deeper parts of the sculpt. But still, another great sculpt and paint job from Neca. Now, on to the accessories. Probably my favorite accessory out of this group is the torch. It's a really cool effect. You have sort of this stick or wood piece here that has been lit up, and then you have a transparent or semi-transparent flame coming off of that, and it really does give it that caught on fire look. So yeah, I think that's a great little accessory. And if you bought several of these figures, you could just, you know, have everyone with torches. They're gonna, you know, burn down something. Next would be these two Uzis right here. They're absolutely identical, straight black paint. I'm not sure what this little flappy is. It doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't attach to anything. Maybe someone that knows guns better would know. It might be part of a belt where you can hang these off of a belt. That would be my most logical conclusion to that piece. But really, for figures like this, I don't think you need that. Another gun, honestly don't know the name of this one, couldn't tell you. It looks a little bit like an Uzi as well, but a little bit longer and a little more detailed. It too has a simple black paint job. We also have this particular gun. No clue on the name of it either. I'm not really much of a gun guy, but it has sort of a bolt action look to it, and then has a full clip here on the side. Really nice, but once again, simply black. These figures do come with extra hands. We have one hand that is obviously meant to hold a gun and a trigger. And then we have another which is just sort of a gripping hand, I think meant for the fire. They're both right hands, by the way. And last but not least, we have two identical knives. right here. One just simply is bloody and the other isn't. This is probably meant for the scene where the bald wolf man kills David in his dreams. You can use the knife simply unpainted, no blood on it like that, or one that's bloody from slitting David's throat. Pretty simple, just silver paint, black handle, and a couple little silver beads for what holds the handle together there. So let's get down to the nitty-gritty of articulation for this figure. We'll bring this one back into frame. I would say remove the gun from his hand here, but it's fairly secure. Alright, we'll set that aside. And here we have the figure. Now, of course, these figures, every figure now has pretty much the same amount of articulation, 20 or so points of articulation, but I would like to start going over these with you guys just to kind of give you an idea of any problems that might arise from articulating and posing this figure. Now, of course, he has the standard neck pivot here. His head is hinged at the jaw and can move one side to the other. No problem whatsoever. He can look up fairly well, but he can't quite look down for this particular head. We'll switch out. Now look how easy that was to switch out. That's one of the great things I found out about this particular figure. The heads work quite easily with the ball joint. Now, of course, we have old Baldy here, and he too can look left to right, no problem. If you want to get a little exorcist action going there, you just whoosh, 360. And of course, he can lean side to side with the neck. This particular head isn't hindered by the hair or a helmet, and so he can look up quite a bit, and he can look down quite a bit as well. Pretty cool, pretty cool. Of course, we'll get into the next head, old hillbilly werewolf here. And same difference. His articulation is limited ever so slightly by the length of his face, particularly his chin and the hair in the back. So he can get a pretty good turn there. You know, if you raise him up, you might get a little bit better, but a lot of it just comes down to that hair and chin. And of course, he looks, whoa, popped right off. All right, put you back. He can look up a little bit, not much. He's almost looking straight ahead, but he can look down fairly well. And then we get to the final head here. And this one would be the most limited. He can turn quite well, but then those sideburns get in the way of the shoulders. And so he gets a little further articulation left and right than the previous head. But that's about it, especially when you have him seated really well on that ball joint. Again, hair kind of gets in the way of him looking up, but doesn't get in the way of looking down. So, yeah. Switch back to one of my two favorite heads here. Now we can move on to the rest of the body here. The arms can go up quite easily, almost straight across without any issue there. So that's good. You know, full rotation as well on both of these. Of course, you have the typical elbow articulation, and then you have a bit of a swivel there, back and forth. Of course, typical with these hands, you get just, you know, 360, but they added a little bit of a joint here so you can reposition those hands back and forth pretty nicely. Same with this one. Now these are, of course, because of the uniform, limited in ab articulation. You can get pretty much nothing out of it. But, I mean, that was expected. I'm not going to nitpick at it too much. Now, of course, you get down into the legs, and then, of course, you have swivel hips, thigh joints here. They can go fairly far, like so. They can turn, of course, no problem. Knee joint as well, that works fine. Also a bit of a pivot there that you can use. I had thought maybe the boots were cut off at the calf here and those could turn, but that's not the case. So pretty much all your posability in the lower part of the leg will just come from the feet, which can move back and forth and a little bit side to side, but not too much. These do stand well on their own. I haven't had them fall over too much. It just depends. If you really kind of jostle them around, they'll fall. But as a backup, I always use those little clear stands that you can get just about anywhere if you look for them. So let me line these guys up once more. Like so. Get you a little group shot action there. So now we come down to a new segment where I rate the figures overall. What I'm going to do is use a system of 3 A's. That would be appearance, articulation, and accessories. Now, where did these figures or this figure land in my rating system? Well, I can tell you, pretty darn high. As far as appearance goes, I found very few problems with the paintwork, the sculpt, or the design. So as far as appearance goes, I'm going to rate these at a 5. And when it comes down to articulation, it did well there. There was an issue with ab crunch. But again, seeing the outfit, you're obviously going to realize there won't be any ab articulation. So, being a little lenient, I gave articulation another 5. Now, as far as the accessories go, the accessories are plentiful. I don't know how you could complain about a figure that comes with multiple guns, knives, you know, a torch, and then to add on top of that 4 total heads in a single action figure. Not a ton to complain about, but I will complain just a little. The guns, as you can see here in this particular one, are just simply straight black mold injected plastic. Nothing was done at all to them. There's no gray wash or distressing or anything like that. And that's what I would have liked to have seen. Just one extra step to make this a fantastic set. But I can't knock it too much. I mean, you get so much stuff. So for accessories, I put this at 4.5. So what do I think overall? Well, I can't complain. I really can't complain. And this is something I've wanted to see in action figure form for many years. Now, a long time ago, a small company called Soda Toys, S-O-T-A maybe, put out this single Nightmare Demon by himself, but he was a much larger scale, probably 8 to 9 inches. And he was done quite well, but not as good as this. Let me tell you, I love these 4 figures. I can't wait to get them displayed back behind me. And I especially can't wait for the Werewolf to come in. Hopefully I'll get to review that soon, and you'll guys see that review as well. From what I've heard, he's pretty massive scale-wise, and I just can't wait to have that figure along with these. Of course, I do want a decomposing Jack, and I do want a regular Jack and David. So hopefully Neca will provide that for us. It would be a shame if we only got these and the Wolf, but they've got to have those 3 figures left in them. If I saw anything else from this line, just those 3 figures. But we'll all have to see, won't we? Anyway, I hope you'll stick around, and I especially hope you will subscribe, like, and hit the bell. Every bit of your interaction helps. I have a good time talking with you guys, and hey, just blow it up. Blow up the channel. Help me out. We'll talk toys, we'll talk collecting, and everything in between. But for now, I'll catch you next time.